Moving on with the program, DKIX, as we now very well know, is a leading innovator when it comes to not just simply looking at it as an internet exchange, but when you look at Office 365, Microsoft Azure peering services, enterprise closed user groups, the services that DKIX provides and offers span across multiple industries. And in our next panel, we have, of course, Ivo is going to lead that conversation, who's here from Germany for this event. But at the same time, we also have some very distinguished guests who are from various different sectors of different industries. And the topic of our panel is accelerating digitalization across multiple industries. So we'll hear from industry leaders how digital transformation is happening across various industry sectors, including healthcare, finance, automobile, academia, banking, and a lot more. With that, I'd like to now call upon our esteemed speakers on the of this panel on the stage. And I'd like to request the panelists to please come on stage as their names are taken. Michael Karafotis from Bank of America, Managing Director, Data Quality and Control Executive, Global Technology and Operations Leader. Michael has been a great voice for the banking industry for this region. Michael and I worked together on a couple of initiatives. Very, very happy to have you here, Michael. Thank you for coming. Next, I'd like to invite on stage Jisabel Gilmore, another personal friend, someone I really admire, is the Chief Commercial Officer and co-founder of Packet Fabric. Packet Fabric's business is, again, industry agnostic. What Jisabel and her team have done is certainly very commendable in terms of the value proposition of the network agnostic service they've taken in offering network services to customers. Next, I'd like to invite Dr. Barbara Boyne from VCU. Barbara has been part of the IEIC from the very beginning, and I've had some very deep, engaging conversations with Dr. Boyne in terms of how does this infrastructure impact the academia, how does this infrastructure impact medicine and engineering. Thank you so much for being here, Dr. Boyne. Very nice to have you. Next, I'd like to invite Dr. Volkan Otugan, who is a chair professor, Department of Mechanical Engineering from SMU Lyle School of Engineering. I recently was introduced to Dr. Volkan, and one of the amazing things about him is he pioneered a master's in data center engineering program. Yes, it's a full-fledged master's program in data center engineering. Dr. Volkan, welcome. Please come. Next, I'd like to call upon Jennifer Taylor, who, amongst other things, has been turning around the NVTC, or the Northern Virginia Technology Council ship 360 degrees with her innovation of within the company itself. She's a technology innovator herself with a very strong background at CTA, and she's been leading some very amazing efforts both within NVTC and also beyond externally for the community as well. Jennifer, welcome, welcome. Thank you. And of course, the moderator of the session, our one and only Ivo Ivanov.
Thank you. And what a great panel already. I feel excited about this, and yeah, that shouldn't be a problem. We can start, and we already, we're the first panel which starts earlier. It's a very good indication, right? So we have more time. Thank you so much. Appreciate this. And we do have a great mix on this panel. Before I ask every single one of you just to say a couple of more words about the role and the company, I wanna just point out that we see a great mix of different organizations. We do have a small enterprise, if I might call it like that. We do have two large, or one large enterprise being represented on stage, probably the largest in this sector, not only in the country, but one of the largest globally by far. We do have two organizations from the academic sector, and a lot of thoughts have been shared today on how important education is. And we have Thanks God, Jess, being here, because then we will have the wholesale industry entirely underrepresented. I think with your company, you have proven how important, of course, services like network as a service orchestration for different type of organizations are, especially for enterprises as well. So a great mix, and the focus of this discussion is, of course, the digital transformation and the related new type of connectivity services to different type of organizations because of their digital transformation. If it comes to digital transformation, before I hand over to you, my thoughts on this are that there is no a single organization nowadays which is not into digital transformation. Either this organization has digital services already, or even those who do have entirely non-digital offline product, they have like the bottles of water we see around us. I hope they are non-digital so far. They have entirely digital processes behind the manufacturing. So at the end, we end up with digital transformation everywhere. And we know a lot of challenges related to this, and we'll discuss this, but also we'll also try to summarize at the end trends and let's say needs and demand for a better future to serve all the needs of the different industry sectors. Let's see how that goes. So having said this, I want to hand over to you first to introduce yourself, the organization. You have been introduced, but more to say about your role and what are your current challenges related to digital transformation in general, wow. And then we'll become more specific.
Okay, great.
Yes.
So lovely to be here. Thank you, Vinay, for inviting me. So I'm the president and CEO, Jennifer Taylor, of the Northern Virginia Technology Council. It's been around for 32 years. Our mission is really simple. It's to accelerate tech innovation and promote a world-class workforce. We are the trade association representing the tech ecosystem in the national capital region. We do 4 things. We connect our tech ecosystem, we educate it, advocate for it, and celebrate it. We have about just under 500 members, and they range from tech companies to service providers and higher education institutions. We have 13 university presidents in the Commonwealth that are members. Okay, my biggest issue, my biggest challenge with digital transformation, there's so many. The biggest one that I'm facing, and Vince Cerf talked about this morning, you know, the company, the acronym company, the small businesses. We're a small business, but it's really important that I deliver value to my members and my constituents, and I'm gonna do that at scale with technology. And so my biggest challenge has been understanding my tech stack and making choices, making informed choices for improving that digital experience. When you're not a tech person, you know, when you're not an engineer, it's a scary process. It's a really scary process. So I'm doing landscape assessments, I'm talking to other companies, I'm talking to other councils. There's 100 councils, tech councils around the country. So that's my biggest challenge, making those choices. How do I build my tech stack? Am I gonna regret it? We heard that person from Uber talking about the challenge of knitting that together. So that's mine.
Yeah, absolutely. And listening to you, you're actually asking for creating an ecosystem, an environment where small organizations, small businesses, they can start using different services in terms of connectivity or digital services, yes. in a seamless way.
Right.
Actually,
so you have a website, you have email, you have communities,
yes.
you have your finance systems, you have your event registration, and it all has to talk, and it's expensive and it's hard.
So this is what I call, in my words, democratizing interconnection. This is what our connectivity services, and this is what we will need to do. And I'll continue with the ladies on the panel: democratizing interconnection, making usage of being known as wholesale services as easy as possible for different types of organizations. I think this is something Packet Fabric believes in a lot.
Yes, democratizing network is what we're trying to achieve, right? Making network as consumable as cloud has made storage and compute. So, and you know, I have to say that what you said about the difficulty in building the technology stack, right? And a lot of people sitting around this room are in technology, so you probably are thinking to yourself, yeah, it's really hard for me. So imagine that if you're not in technology and you're thinking, I have a business that is becoming more and more dependent on technology, on the digital transformation. What am I supposed to do? What if I make a wrong decision? Does that haunt you at night? And you're making a decision that's committing you to a service term of multiple years. And is that a foundation for your business, for your success? Does that allow you to perform your core competency to service your customer base? What if you make a wrong decision? Then what happens? And so from that perspective, what we're trying to do is really making access to all the different services available to the different enterprises and customer base so that they can make the choice that they want and also have the flexibility of reaching those services easily and conveniently and cost effectively. So, you know, that is what also keeps me up at night, right? What we call OSS, BSS in networking, making the back end of your service work together.
I think this is one of the, almost one of the, let's say, big homework points we will need to have on our list for accelerating digitalization across multiple industries, as the title of our panel. Now, Barbara, over to you. The educational academic sector is, of course, full into digital transformation already. I truly believe this. However, they are challenges for sure. And I know we have students in the room, so we have to be very honest.
Okay, guys. I am actually, I've served as Dean of Engineering up until July, where I transitioned into being the Executive Director of an Institute for Engineering and Medicine. And I have to say that the beauty of having both of those roles is that I have been able to participate in the transformation of a university from the, can't say exactly the dark ages, but into a leading force in this digital transformation. And there's a couple of things that have happened to make that possible. I do have to give a shout out to the legislature for the Commonwealth of Virginia. About 5 years ago, it became clear, and this is something that in the medical world you're really conscious of, is we have to collect huge amounts of data, and we have to do it with total security. So cyber is at the core of every single thing we do. But with the amount of data that we collect and the ability to use those data across platforms is phenomenal. And it was obvious that we couldn't do it because we simply didn't have that kind of computing power available to us in the academic world. So we went to the legislature and we asked them to take a chance on us. And they did. They gave us enough money to buy some fantastic hardware. QTS was with us every step of the way. We formed a partnership with IBM. Our supercomputer, our huge computer, has arrived. It's in boxes. And it's a Z computer, and so I named it Zima for what? Warrior Princess. Now, I was going to say when I first started this that there was a sea of Y chromosomes in this room. I'm happy to see after lunch it's become a little more balanced. But the reality of life is that this field now has to have an awful lot of double X chromosomes in it in order for it to be a balanced technology when it all comes out. So one of the things that we've done at VCU is to create a degree path towards a computer science bachelor's degree as a BA. In other words, to accommodate a lot of the people in academia who maybe don't want to grow up to be an engineer or grow up to be a BS style of computer scientist, but want that technology in their toolbox so that they can take on some of the aspects of computer science that we really haven't talked about today, which is the user interface. It's impossible. You guys can write algorithms tell you, tell you croak, but if people don't want to use them, then they're useless. So I am very proud of my university that it is tackling this. It is doing it as part of the community. Henrico has been fantastic. The legislature has been fantastic. Bank of America has been a great partner, and certainly IBM. Thank you for Zena. Okay.
Yeah, fantastic. And you already introduced the next contribution on the panel.
My guy. Yeah.
Talking about this fantastic partnership, let's touch on the general question. What are the key challenges if it comes to the ocean of digital transformation in such a big organization like Bank of America? I know it's a difficult question, but probably there are a couple of highlights.
There's probably a lot of answers to that question at Bank of America. And so probably the thing that kind of sits down with my current role at the bank, which is kind of in the space of data, is really the data management aspect of it. So what's really interesting, I think, about today's meeting, conference, this celebration we're having, and congratulations.
Thank you.
It makes me think back 20 years before I was in the banking business, and I was working kind of in the internet business. And at that time, we were always trying to get more out faster, right? It was the dot-com boom, right? It was really trying to get more information, more data out, but we couldn't get it there fast enough. TCP/IP stack wasn't tuned correctly. I'm not sure who had responsibility for that. But we were always pushing the envelope of technology, and so it was very much a tech business. But we're now kind of getting to the crest, and we're becoming really the information part of information technology is taking over. And earlier today, someone talked about tech debt. Well, what we're worried about is data debt, because our technology collects a lot of information. And if we're not being very intentional about what that data is and how it's used and how we're managing it, it can cause problems. It can be confusing. We're not sure we're using the right data, or it's being used correctly, or now we're having a lot more legislation internationally as well as domestically around customer data. You might not even know you're capturing some customer data. There was an example made before. You might have information about a customer's response time that you didn't know you were capturing, but a customer could say, hey, wipe all my data. If you don't know where that information is, that's a problem. So one of our biggest challenges today is really being able to manage data and understand it and do it in an intentional way, and not really allow the technology to over-propagate that information. So that's really kind of where my current role is at the bank. But from a technologist perspective, and where we work with VCU and work with the community here, it's really around trying to develop those skills. And develop skills that understand data and information, understand those skills as they apply to technology, to business problems. And one of the great partnerships we have with VCU is that they're aligning those skills across the different schools. So it's not just your engineers, or it's not just your computer scientists, it's your design folks in the art school that are working with data. So that's really the most exciting part of this, and it makes me wonder, what is the next 20 years, what ribbon's gonna be cut on the stage here, right?
Yeah, this is the big question, and we'll try to predict this a bit more until at the end. Talking about data, in simple words, what you're talking about is actually the control on the data journey, to have the transparency at the same time, to be able to assure a certain level of security you want to have in place as organization on that data journey. The data of your organization, but also the data of your customers. That's more important. And talking about data management, we're talking about also infrastructure and infrastructure strategy, also talking about data center strategy of big enterprises or all enterprises if it comes to the migration out of the office space, out of the cellar, out of the basement with the IT equipment into a professionally managed data centers. Talking about this, Volkan, the topic of a data center science managed in a proper way becomes extremely important, even more important as it is today for the future, having this a giant wave of new organizations who would be requesting professionally managed data center services. And I learned yesterday when we met that you have created a unique new approach with your institution. Please tell us more about this, and how do you see the future if it comes to specific digital infrastructure education?
Yes, thank you, Ivo, and Vinay, thank you very much for inviting me. Actually, I'm here by accident. My co-director of the program that we were talking about was going to come, but he's the real technical person, so I am an impersonator here. I'm a mechanical engineer. Dr. Klein Smith is the person who, but he had teaching obligations, so he couldn't make it, but he's a computer scientist, and he teaches in that department. So a week ago today, I stepped down as the Senior Associate Dean of the Lyell School of Engineering at SMU. But the reason I'm saying that is that when I was the Senior Associate Dean, the industry leaders approached us, being in Dallas, being comprehensive university, bachelor's, master's, PhD programs, a comprehensive engineering school, and they talked about data centers. So at the time, this is 10, 12 years ago, and we said, huh? And so over time, because in academia, sometimes Barbara may agree with me, is that we could be, we're good technically, scientifically, but we could be clueless in terms of where the cutting technology is. But they were very, very patient with us, and they set us down, and they talked to us and everything, and then we were convinced that an interdisciplinary engineering graduate degree program really was in order. And we realized that the people who grew up with the industry are getting older a little bit, and they would be retiring at some point, and that we needed the next generation and the generation following that. So we were sold. Of course, you know, academia, the accreditation, you have to convince, of course, the school, the university, Senate, and the Board of Trustees. We're a private university. And of course the accreditation. So it took about 2 years. But the great thing about it is that we had fantastic, serious input from the industry, how to shape this interdisciplinary engineering program that touches all the 5 departments, engineering departments that we have. So ultimately we had a product. We launched it in 2014, and we had our first graduate in 2015. Actually, it was on a Warpath, I think, and of all places, he got employed by Raytheon, gobbled up immediately, of all companies. So the program is, again, interdisciplinary master's degree program. If you will, it's a T-shaped. It first gives a broad idea of what goes into all of this infrastructure. And then the second, which is all required courses, and then the second half is you can focus or specialize in different tracks, and we have 4 different tracks. And I don't want to take too much time for it now, but we could discuss it later if...
No, we all learned how important education is, and having the specific dedicated, let's say it's a master, if I learned correctly.
Yeah, Master of Science, MS degree.
Data Center Science.
Data Center Systems Engineering, which is about data centers.
I think this is exactly what we will need in the future. Talents being educated on this specific parts of digital infrastructure, because they become so important. So we need this specialized type of jobs, and not just an engineer who by chance landed with a data center operator. I'm not saying the guys are not doing great jobs, but we need probably 10 times more in the next years, and properly and well educated. Talking about education, I want to stay a bit with the topic of education as we learn how important this is. And Vinay, thanks for mentioning this earlier. I by heart believe that this is one of the most important topics our industry should follow on, the increase of awareness of the importance of digital infrastructure, but also to train, to motivate talents to get involved in digital infrastructure. And our project is the Interconnection Academy. Is not the DKICS Academy, is a neutral, open Interconnection Academy as a lower entry level for those who are not willing to do a master or bachelor immediately, but they need a more flexible, easy to join in program, and then after decide what's the right area to specialize in. So this global economy is one aspect here. And Barbara, I know you want to share with us a lot on this topic.
I do, because there is, in the last few years, there's been a lot of development along this way. There is an entity in our region called the Greater Washington Partnership that brought forth the observation that if academia didn't pick up its game, that industry would do it for us. So they challenged us to create programs that students at all levels could access into this part of the economy. And we were the first university to meet this challenge, and it's been a very successful program. We created online courses in basic computer science followed by data science, so that at the end a certificate would be earned both at VCU as well as from the Greater Washington Partnership. The companies involved agreed to hire students that had completed these certificates preferentially if they managed to do that. I mean, that was an overwhelmingly positive outcome. Yeah. And so students opted in. At the other level, because we now have Xena, we are able, this is not university-wide, this is a Commonwealth-wide Center for Cloud Computing, which is designed so that students can come in and work with industry directly outside, in a sandbox outside of the constraints of the university and the companies to solve problems. And these kids are coming in from all backgrounds. They're coming in from art, they're coming in from information systems in the business school, engineering, and they are taking on really complex problems and solving them, and even including high school students and even some middle school students in this process. These kids are different. I came through back when we had the cards. You remember the shoe boxes full of punch cards. But these young kids come through so agile that they're able to do anything. They don't have any constraints whatsoever, so they can tackle these things with fresh minds. It's a really exciting thing to watch, and it is. I would love to be still alive in 20 years to see what it looks like next.
Oh,
Yeah.
I can, I can imagine how that feels, and talking about education leads me to another topic. The better the awareness within the organizations become about digital services and infrastructure, the better the chance, and this is what I certainly believe in, for organizations, enterprises, disregarding of the type of sector, finance or retail or insurance or e-health, you name it, automotive, of course, as the examples I gave, to follow on one specific strategy. And I call this strategy the creation of digital virtual assets. And my question goes first to you, Mike. Can you confirm this? Is it a part of the strategy of an organization like Bank of America, of course, to create new type of services, closer to data, closer to data usage? You mentioned how important the topic of management of data is and security on data, but I believe you certainly think beyond this, also being there for your customer as a new digital service financial provider. Can you please elaborate on this? And if you confirm that this is the case, then the following question is, what are the actions you take in terms of connectivity or infrastructure usage services to support this strategy, provided the strategy is right for you?
All right, thanks for the easy question. Appreciate that. Absolutely. So I'll try to answer the question in parts. So first and foremost, I think Vinay said before that our CEO mentioned that Bank of America is a technology company, it's a data company. It's one of our key strategies at the bank is our data strategy. And it's not just a data strategy for our technology, it's a data strategy for every aspect of our business. And how we think about our data, how we organize it, and how we use it, whether it's for our operational use, it is for servicing our customers, it is for doing advanced intelligence on how we can help our customers in the market, or it can just be about how we're reporting out to our regulatory partners all around the world with confidence on what our balance sheets look like, right? Which are all very, very important for those that are in the financial sector. So we've been on this journey for a while in terms of data and in terms of technology and in terms of digitization. And I think what, independent from the regulatory oversight, what can be seen, I think, over the last 2 to 3 years is that we have sort of prepped the groundwork in terms of kind of being a digital organization, right? I mean, I don't think anybody here goes to their bank saying, hey, I need to pay my mortgage, here's my suitcase of cash. Doesn't really happen. If it does, you're probably not doing it with any reputable bank in this country. Though maybe you are, I'm not sure, I'm not going to judge. But the reality is all of the financial services industry is completely digitized. And so everything we do is around the data of the digital transactions, the customer transactions, et cetera. So our internal systems need to be gauged to handle that. And then how that information makes it to the marketplace. So whether we're doing that directly to our customers over the public internet, we're doing it through third parties or fourth parties, which is always a concern, which is when you have a third party using a third party, that's your fourth party. You have to really be sure that your data is being managed effectively downstream. So we have a number of different strategies at the bank on how we handle data in those different situations, and we're organizing our technology better to continue to manage that forward. What I would say is that we want to be 100% confident in the data that we have, whatever it is, so that we can use it effectively, not only to service our customers, but to do things that our competitors can't do. And that's not something you can just want to do. You have to put in place the mechanisms to do it. How do you talk about data? How do you make data accountable? Who's accountable for data? How do you link that to your processes, to the shareholder value? All the things that we have to do is all based upon data. And the technology, as I said before, is really there it's an enabler. Right? It's an enabler for the digitization of what we're doing. So I think I might have talked about, I'm not even sure I answered your question, Ivo.
The question was even more specific about connectivity, new type of connectivity solutions you want to decide to use in the future more than you have done in the past. One example, right?
Yeah.
Talking about, in simple words, controllability of the data journey. This is what you're saying. Increasing the level of security, increasing the level of transparency for you, and assuring the best performance possible. Might mean that instead of using upstream services like IP transit services only or MPLS services only, you might want to, for instance, decide to do peering, to get a direct interconnection with residential service providers just to make sure that the employees working from home are directly interconnected with the network of a bank.
Yeah, and that was...
This was more the question getting into the direction, what type of, if you want to disclose this, what type of concepts a financial institution like the Bank of America is focusing on in terms of connectivity for the future. Also the question, does a bank of this size plan to operate its own global network further to a higher extent, and does an organization like yours plan to create a lot of setups in professionally operated data centers and not using your own ones only?
Yeah, so great lead in, thanks for that. I think, Ivo, as you know, at Bank of America, I think we have maybe the third largest private internet backbone across the globe. And so we use that extensively for all of our internal traffic. But we can't service our customers purely on our internal networks. So it's all about getting that information out, whether it's to local peering providers, to the public internet, to other private networks that our corporate commercial customers may have that they want to integrate with. So we have all of those types of capabilities that we're looking at. But now the reality is cloud service providers are providing capabilities that we just can't always provide ourselves. Now at the bank, we've been a little bit more cautious about cloud adoption versus some of our competitors, for right or for wrong. Now we need to figure out what that's going to look like. We're doing Office 365, so that's a big plus. That's for our employees. During COVID, we became an extremely work-from-home organization, so luckily we had a lot of the capabilities to enable that, but we did require local connectivity around the globe because we've got folks in India, the UK, Ireland, blah, 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 you name it. So this was a global problem for us, and luckily we handled it very well. Now the other part of it, which I think most folks know, is the consumer, which we're a US consumer population, is very digital. But not all consumers were digital prior to COVID. After COVID, they all became very digital, and suddenly adoption skyrocketed, which was good for us because that's what we wanted, but it was also a growth curve in our technology platforms that we weren't quite ready for. So we had to manage that very effectively through the COVID timeframe. So No additional new strategies yet, and I know you're trying to get some more business.
That's probably enough. Yeah, and Jess, now to you, having heard all this, and I know that the vast majority of your customer base are enterprises. So what are your, let's say, key takeaways so far from the business of the last couple of years of new type of connectivity solutions you do provide to your customers, which do help them to accelerate digital transformation within their organizations? Can you name the top 3, probably from your point of view, and what would you recommend, Jen, for solving her issues, as she mentioned? What type of new decisions does she need to make to change probably some type of connectivity services her organization is subscribed to today?
Well, the needs from enterprise customers really hasn't changed, except they want it more, faster, better, and cheaper. Yeah. So, they're not looking for new technologies, although, there's new technologies that's coming along, but they still need the old technologies that's always been there, that's working, and they just need to do more of it. And from our perspective, it's 10 gig to 100 gig to 400 gig, maybe to 800 gig, So those are all coming, and it's getting cheaper by the minute. And the telco world is only competing against themselves, right? But truly in bringing services on demand to the way that enterprises are looking to consume them, I don't think that we're quite ready for it because of the lack of interoperabilities across the different platforms, the different systems. People still want to work in their walled garden. This is mine, it's my turf, it's my services, my network, my data center, my margins, my profit. And so that goes to not just the services themselves, but bring up talent, right? Education. The reason why that building Packet Fabric was difficult and few people does it is not because we are utilizing some astrophysics technology that nobody knows about, but is the lack of talent that has both understanding of physical infrastructure and software development. So the people who work on the physical infrastructure don't want to understand the software development aspect of the business, and the software development side of the business don't want to know that there's physical infrastructure involved, and what are those challenges that lay on the physical layer, in the layer 0, and in the data center side. So when we bring talents together, they don't speak the same language. And so there's no programs in universities or in tech schools or any of the schools that actually brings talent that solves the world's problem. They're raising talent to a particular discipline of technology or academia. I'm not even sure what I would call it exactly, but if you're studying finance, you're looking at a spreadsheet and you're looking at the impact of economic drivers and saying, okay, well, can you change this line in this cell, and then we could make money. You just change that. And then the engineers go, well, how would you like to have us do that, right? So there needs to be disciplines coming together in really understanding, appreciate each other's challenges, and trying to work together. And I think that is really what I want to see from our higher education institutions, in coming together and in coming to say, how does one solve the challenges in the increasingly complex tech stack? There's going to be some more consolidations in the market, and when it comes to product development for the masses, it has to be a little more intuitive and easier to use. And especially with cybersecurity coming into play, and there's so many malicious players out there, we're going to be seeing more consolidations to make it actually more consumable for end users.
Now we're getting back to the educational topic, which is extremely important. Barbara, you want to comment on this before I hand over to Jen?
I do.
Yeah.
She made me chuckle because as a biomedical engineer, you figure out really quickly that nothing that an engineer comes up with all by their lonesome is going to ever be seen in a human, because they have to somehow eventually talk to a human or the clinician, and then it still might not be seen because it may be too expensive in the end, and so there has to be a business person. And in the real world, in real business, people work in teams, but in academia, they work in departments, and so you try to cross them over. Our solution has been what we call vertically integrated projects, where we bring in people from different parts of the college to work on projects and reach out to other parts of the university. There is no other way to do it, and until it's the language barrier. It's just in technology, you'd think that we all speak the same language, but we really do not. So I think communication is key, and that's kind of what I like about this Southern Methodist program. It sounds like they've made a concerted attempt in a master's program to bring in all these different parties to work together. And I would say in the Commonwealth Center for Cloud Computing, that has been a primary goal, is to do this interdisciplinary, actually transdisciplinary approach. Students, they have to make it through college somehow, and there's only so many hours in a day, but there are things we can do to help them learn to communicate better.
Definitely true, and education is extremely important. We'll get back to this even one more time, given the importance. But I think talking about practical approach outside of the market or in the day life of enterprises, disregarding the size, especially with the smaller ones, I think cloudification is everywhere, right? Cloudification.
I love
what
that.
do you do in terms of usage of cloud resources today, and what do you want to change? What are your pain points?
Okay, so like I said, NVTC, we're a tech council. There's tech councils all around the country. This one's been around for 32 years. When I joined as the president and CEO in the middle of the pandemic in 2020, I came in and I noticed that nothing was in the cloud. Not like there was one database that was on-prem, and I came from large nonprofits, like three of the largest in the nation: the American Red Cross, AARP, and the Consumer Technology Association. So I was in as the first-time CEO. You can't just look to somebody else to fix it. You're like, wow, I gotta digitally transform this organization. And why did I do it? Well, I needed to make sure we were member-centric and we were serving our members in the best way possible. But I had to get the people on board. I had to set the processes. We had to get the right technology. And I'm still on the journey, 2 years in. And now I forgot your specific question. So
how do you handle your cloud? Do you use cloud connectivity today? Obviously
Okay,
cloud.
so for people who know me well, especially my team, my middle name is Automation. And so I say to people, if we can automate this, if we can put this in the cloud, if we can make the broccoli of our job done by a computer, then that frees up our time so I can build relationships with my key constituents and the members that I serve, like the Vinay's of the world and the Stan Blackwells of the world. I don't know if he's here, but these are my members, and I want to talk with them, and I want to help them solve their problems. I don't want to be entering my credits and debits and doing my account balances. You know, a computer can help us with that, right? So we've done a tremendous amount of modernization. We still have a lot of ways to go. The pandemic certainly accelerated that. We're finally using Cloud 365. We can work on the same document at the same time. Imagine that. I mean, it really matters. So I'm a big fan of cloud. And the next thing we're doing is revamping our website. And I've just got to be able to connect all the things that we do with our members and patch it all together. But I take one day at a time. I pace myself. And we've made a tremendous amount of progress the last 2 years, and we're going to keep doing that. So anyway, I'm a big fan of the cloud.
Oh, yeah.
Period. Basically, you pay for what you use, right?
As we all are, given all the different types of usage and talking about cloud and the financial sector, I learned from a couple of authorities in Europe, but also in the US, that they started using a very long title challenging the finance sector on one regulatory requirement. The long title says Cloud Concentration Risk Mitigation Plan. So Cloud Concentration Risk Mitigation Plan becomes very important for all those organizations who obviously do have a multi-cloud strategy, and as we know, these are almost 90+% of the industry outside. So what are your thoughts on cloud concentration risk mitigation, Mike? I hope this question is not that easy as the previous one.
I mean, you're asking me my opinion sometimes, you have to be careful. So look, I mean, I think where that question comes from is just a very base question around resiliency, right? And this applies to technology, the service delivery, and in the financial sector, it is an extremely legitimate concern, especially when you're one of the largest financial institutions in the world, right? A lot of money runs through our pipes, and we need to make sure we continue to allow the global economy to function. So when we start thinking about all of our resiliency types of issues, we're very concerned about, you know, what are the service we're providing, what is the data that sits behind it, what's the technology that drives it, how do we get that to our customers, how do we get that to our partners, et cetera. So then as we start to kind of adopt more cloud, or even today in our third parties, which are adopting cloud, we got to continue to understand how they're managing that data. Because cloud mitigation strategy, I think to your point, is what are we going to do if we lose that cloud provider, or that cloud provider has an outage? So do we have multiple cloud providers? Do we augment cloud with our internal systems? Do we have significant contingency capabilities available so that we can run in a kind of an alternate mode in the event we have some sort of significant outage? And then what level of risk are you willing to accept do you want to put into the cloud? So do you want to just do maybe temporary transactions in the cloud? So if you think of it more as an offloading of kind of grid computing type activities, right, where it's go crunch some numbers and give me the data back because I don't want to hold all the servers inside? Or is it, do I want to host information out there? Okay, I got information out there, I got my data out there. How are you managing that data? Is that data secure? Are you backing it up regularly? How are you backing it up? What happens if you have a cyber attack and that your entire backup system gets wiped out? What are you going to do to recover that? So the what-if scenarios continue to be developed, and every time you think you got the answer, there's a new scenario to come after. So I do look at cloud mitigation strategy as really just overall mitigation and resiliency strategy, which is an area of significant focus by our senior leadership team, by our peers in the industry, and clearly by the regulators around the world.
All right, that makes sense. It was even more about the cloud concentration and risk mitigation, because as we all know, a lot of companies, they have their main resources in one cloud, and this became over time, of course, a lack of security.
And not all cloud providers are the same either. So not all cloud providers are the same. So you could have a multi-cloud provider solution, but now you're dealing with different types of ways of deploying your code or your environments.
Yeah, I have a personal opinion on this, that the multi-data center environment, a very redundant one, and under one integrated orchestration can be one of the answers, using cloud routers and cloud exchanges, highly distributed at the same time, redundant. Talking about highly distributed cloud zones, as we all know, cloud lives in the data centers. So what is the portion of cloud, I would say, in your master program, and what are your academic projections for the future? What will happen in the sector if it comes to cloud and data center business?
We do realize that more and more everything is in the cloud. One tiny example of that is at SMU, working, Jason is here, I don't know if he's here, working with NVIDIA. Just a couple of months ago, we put our SuperPod, the new SuperPod, which is 10 times faster than the other one. So we have a local, if you will, a cloud. But we, as a university, we're using the cloud more and more. Because we started with our laptops, desktops, laptops, and then the servers that were in the basement. But it's going further away into the real cloud. So if I may add, Barbara summarized it very well. The academia, how siloed we are, and we love to live in our own world and teach the same thing year after year. And technology companies tend to nudge us into the present and hopefully into the future as well. Nor that I think that necessarily academia has to be ahead of technology, but we have to be responsive to that. The great thing about the program that we have, the master's degree program we have, is that we really got serious help, guidance from the industry leaders, and that made it a truly, unique in the sense that it's trends discipline. And we also have even partnership with the business school for the management side of things, management decision-making, analytics, real estate, and finance. So we try to make it as broad-based as possible so that, our graduates are not only nerds. We want them to be nerds, but they're not just nerds and nothing else. So
the mix is the right one, right?
The mix is the right one, and we're very happy about that.
So please go ahead.
I've written a lot about the future of work and the 21st century workforce, and it's so true that, first of all, the soft skills are so important. A lot of companies will say we can teach the new workforce the skills they need to a degree, but when I look back in my own college experience, I went to the University of Michigan. I mean, it's really important when you come out of school to be able to work with people in other disciplines, whether that's finance or software engineers or marketing or business development, sales. And sometimes our universities, we're teaching one discipline, and then when you get into the real world, you've got to work with people of different personalities and different
Guilty as
knowledge bases.
charged.
Yeah. So I know I'm stating the obvious.
So given the time, and I want to be the first panel today, which will end on time. We will have even more time had at the end. But I have 2 points. First, my last question, and this is the following. Just try to answer it as in 10, 20, 30, max 45 seconds. I know it's difficult. If you would have an unlimited budget, what would be your next project related to service or digital transformation initiative or just creating a new solution? The open floor. And after this question has been answered, I'll do a very brief summary and to want to make a bit different final picture of all of us, inviting also other guests on stage. But let's do that after. Barbara, first.
Okay, so 45 seconds. As I'm looking at the future based on what I've learned in the past as a serial entrepreneur, it would be impossible to do anything in the modern world without considering the digital infrastructure. It is part and parcel of everything. The FDA even now requires that all software, even remotely involved in the development of a new technology, has to be validated, and they have guidance on how to do that. If we don't take this seriously now, we simply cannot move forward. This is a change, and I think the pandemic was a sea change. It was happening, now it has happened, and we need to be realistic about how quickly we can get this done.
Thank you.
So if I have unlimited budget,
Yes.
and I get to do, and I'm not worried about making a profit, then I like to develop a full mesh wireless technology that enables near field communication between all of your devices, so that in the event the internet goes away, that we can still communicate with each other.
Thank you.
Another hot question, Ivo. So I think if we had unlimited budget, or if I had unlimited budget, it wouldn't be a specific project, but it would be if we could find a way within the bank to segment out our data from our compute in a much more systemic way across everything we do, it would make all these problems a lot easier, especially if we could compartmentalize and secure the data at a kind of an element level or record level. So if we had a way of doing that, that would be great.
Then I wish this will become reality very soon. All right, Volkan?
If I had unlimited amount of money, patience, and energy, I would start an undergraduate program that kind of mimics, but it would be at the undergraduate level. The reason I said energy and patience is that it is extremely difficult, not within the academic world, you know, within the university, but also accreditation, so on and so forth. Things like that are not very easily adapted, appreciated. The other thing is that at the graduate level at SMU engineering, we have distance education online, in class seamlessly. Some people will be in the classroom, some people will be synchronously attending across the world, but my university is adamant that undergraduate is in class. So if I had the money and the power, clout, I would try to change that too.
The Metaverse University. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, that one's easy for me. If I had an unlimited budget and leveraging digital transformation, given my mission and my members, I want to be able to connect the next generation of talent to the thousands of jobs that they have and that they tell me over and over that they can't fill. We have 190,000 open jobs in Northern Virginia, and this country only graduates 90,000 computer science degrees a year. And we also need to, I need to bridge that gap. I need to create that marketplace, or, you know, that's where I would be.
Thank you, very important topic. Now trying to summarize what does accelerate the usage of digital services within various industries. I believe we have to make those services as easy as possible to be used. So democratizing interconnection, we're talking about controllability on data, and last but not least, education. And talk about education, we have students in the room. I want to invite you guys on stage so we build the bridge between the students and the podium, and we'll have a nice picture together, also motivating you to be the next panelist on stage one day very soon, being part of this industry.